We've got a lot to catch up on, and I probably won't get through it all. But I first want to apologize because the last couple of days I've had internet issues. It's been very spotty. And so I was trying to do content and then I would get disconnected and this sort of thing. They finally came out and look, I think it's handled. So hopefully, knock on wood, moving forward, we're good to go. But so now let's set that aside and let's dig in a little bit. First, in this video, we're going to start with the comment section. A couple of things I want to talk about. First of all, this is from a recent video. This is one of the, I guess you could say, a troll trolling the channel. This is what this account said. These channels that pump NIO stocks are all frauds. And so I'm fine with engaging, and I certainly am open to listening to what others say. So I responded with, what specific thing or things from this video did you take as pumping or fraudulent? And what is your thought on FTDs, that's fails to deliver, dropping off when NIO stock rocketed up before? The response was a long one and did not address either of the two questions that I asked. And so I responded, I'll ask you one more time. What specific thing or things from this video did you take as pumping or fraudulent? And what is your thought on FTDs dropping off when NIO stock rocketed up before? And there has been no answer. So I will remove this person. And this is typically what happens. And I don't get it a lot on this channel, but I see comments like this on a lot of different channels covering NIO. And so it's just interesting for me. This is part of the sentiment check in my mind. And just seeing this, I don't know when or if this changes over the course of time, but it's something that I just kind of keep an eye on. And when I see, let's say, short, then I'm paying a little more attention to the comments and seeing how negative or bearish or how much, if this is trolling going on, how much that is happening. So anyway, let's keep it moving though now, because now to positive comments, people who I want to respond to in a positive way and go a little in depth because I didn't get back to them from the comment section. So Mdin1980 and JLH, I think it is 2119, both, I'll cover your questions and then we're going to deep dive a little bit. So the first question is, who are these people who drive the price down intentionally? Nobody can do anything about it. And the other is, thank you for all your effort you put into your channel. A previous video said you contacted NIO about the possible predatory shorting. Had you thought of sending the same info to the SEC, Securities Exchange Commission? And then some thoughts with respect to the Gen 4, Gen 3, the power swap stations and what's going on with that. Early on with Onvo, there have been some questions, and I kind of, my gut instinct is there are some, I guess we'll just call them trolls in China as well, who don't want to see NIO succeed, or who are maybe concerned about NIO's success. Perhaps they even work for companies that are struggling or won't be able to remain relevant long term. I don't know. That's just my gut instinct. So with that, I'm sitting back waiting. And if, somebody who is on the ground, who has gone more in depth and can offer some credible sourcing information with respect to this a little bit more in depth and detailed, then I'll come back and talk about it. But until I see that, I'm just going to wait and we'll see what happens with NIO. They are going to be, and they are actually already building out and expanding the power swap stations. So now let's talk about the shorting. And first of all, we're going here. I've showed this in the past, and I have called these guys the suspicious short in NIO and NIO stock. This is Citadel Advisors LLC, and Citadel is run by Ken Griffin, and they are a massive company. They have a lot of clout across the global markets. Now, here's what's interesting. This is basically, in other foreign markets, Citadel Securities gets into a lot more trouble. They get a lot heftier fines levied against them. And in this instance, China years ago actually kicked them out, did not even allow them to trade in the Chinese markets for a number of years, along with a $97 million fine for essentially shorting and messing with their markets. So just kind of, we've basically got polar opposite scenarios playing out. This is an example of what's happened from the SEC. And this is why I'm not really interested in engaging or spending any time trying to talk to the SEC, because I feel like it would be a waste of time. They charged Citadel Securities for violating order marking requirements of short sale regulations. This is back in 2023. They announced settled charges. And the way this usually works is Citadel pays them money, and then they don't have to say they did anything wrong. And then they just keep doing whatever they're doing. So Citadel Securities apparently, allegedly, violated a provision of Regulation Show, the regulatory framework designed to address abusive short selling practices, which requires broker-dealers to mark sale orders as long, short, or short exempt. These records are routinely used by regulators in policing prohibited short selling activity. To settle the SEC's charges, Citadel paid $7 million. According to the SEC's order, for a 5-year period, it's estimated that Citadel incorrectly marked millions of orders, inaccurately denoting that certain short sales were long sales and vice versa. Folks, if you've ever heard me say that I don't even know if we get to see true price discovery in real time, this is what I'm talking about. If the market maker also has a short position in a stock and wants to predatorily short it, they don't even have to let us see the real data and the real information. We may not even see what the actual true price discovery is or should be. So I just want to know, and good thing I'm long-term, this stuff doesn't bother me, especially in the short term. I just monitor it, track it, dig in and study. Let's keep it moving though. This is even more recently. Finra just hit Citadel with a fine, and this was a $1 million fine. And this is what they determined. From the start of its consolidated audit trail, and they call it a CAT, reporting obligations on June 22nd, 2020 through August 28th, 2024. So this is a 4-year period now. Citadel Securities failed to timely and or accurately report data for tens of billions of equity and option order events. That's a lot. I mean, we're not talking about a couple of dollars or a couple of trades here. We're talking about massive amounts. Now, this, shout out to McSqueezy for sharing this. This is a picture of Ken Griffin with another guy you might recognize. This is Ken Griffin from Citadel, and they were hanging out at the Super Bowl. I remember this, and they've been seen a number of times at different venues. I've seen the pictures and whatever. It's, again, I just want to have this awareness, you know. And now let's actually look a little bit, because we did get the new fail to deliver data for NIO. And I wanted to cover that, since the short-term indicators for me, you've got trade volume, you've got the FTDs, and you've got sentiment. Sentiment obviously is a little shaky right now with NIO stock. I think outside of the people who have done deep dive research and who really see the direction this company is going long-term, and especially those of us who realize that the short thesis, at least the long-term short thesis, the idea that NIO will go bankrupt, is basically crushed. But I probably won't even get to that in this video. I'll probably do that over the weekend. So let's look back at some of this data. And here's what I'm thinking. 2 things. First of all, this is the white lines represent the fails to deliver. That's when there could have been naked shorting going on. And again, I showed you earlier, Citadel has been involved in this play as a short for a while. And hopefully by now, you see why I call them suspicious at the very least, because they have a track record of doing certain things. And what I see here is a lot of white lines, a lot of potential for predatory shorting. Let's just leave it at that. Also, I see what appears to be a depressed, but maybe it's a suppressed stock price for NIO. But this is only the recent term. And this is from about 2022 on. But look at how much more condensed, how heavier. This is a barrage, quite the attack going on here. 6 million, 5 million on single days, individual days, and then back-to-back days where you've got millions of shares that could not be located. And again, there's kind of a consistent theme if Citadel is involved, and if these were some of the orders that they've never even allowed to be marked properly, we don't even know what this stock should maybe even be trading at. And if there are fake, made up, synthetic, created out of thin air shares that aren't actual shares, then we don't have a true representation of the float either. So again, my kind of recognition and kind of over summarization that we may not get to see true price discovery. What does it matter to me? Well, big picture, I'm like, okay, when did we see this? When do we see the fails to deliver drop off? This is when we saw NIO stock absolutely rocket. Now, they also had big trade volume. Recently, we've had lower trade volume with NIO stock. When it started to move up, the trade volume was also up. And so I was just tracking the fails to deliver to see if they would drop off more. The problem is this is all delayed data. We never get it real time. And these are the biggest spikes we've seen since all the way back here before NIO stock made its huge run. And I wonder if this isn't going to end up looking a little bit like this time frame wise, if we might see some craziness, just not yet. It's just one of my thoughts. I have no idea if it's going to play out, but short term, and I'm talking short term as in until the end of the year, I'll keep tracking the sentiment, I'll keep tracking the trade volume, and I'll keep tracking the FTDs, the fails to deliver, when we get them. They continue to be elevated, and this is delayed data. So with a lower daily volume average with NIO stock, I'm just not surprised when things go down. Also, bigger picture, broader market. This is, and Darius Dale, for those who don't know, I just recently discovered him. Beast mode research. Wow. So really glad that I discovered him and his team. But one of the things that he talked about was how China probably will wait on some of their stimulus measures until after the US election. And that was consistent with my thinking. And so it was nice to hear him say that, because wow, I mean, really impressed with his research. And I don't say that about very many people because I'm kind of a research nerd myself. So anyway, this is my tweet or retweet of his information with kind of that in mind. And at what point, does China push through? It makes sense, especially if they're waiting to see the outcome of the US election. And if they know they have sort of a proven, if it ends up being Trump, they've worked with him before, they at least know what to expect there. And that also, I think, just them knowing how divided our country is with the political landscape in the US, it makes sense for them to wait. But there is another person, Thomas Hayes, who talked about Alibaba. And it was so funny because he actually even called out a price target and range to watch for. He said, watch, that we're going to get all this negative news narrative, essentially, that we typically hear about China. And Alibaba's stock price is going to go down to about $95. And then it's going to rocket up again. And so I've been kind of sitting back watching, kind of curious if that's not going to play out. And I did see today, and this is Thursday, October 17th. The market is closed now as I'm recording this, but I did see that the price for Alibaba dipped under $100. But here's what's interesting. I wanted to show the fails to deliver because, again, we've got this representation of the white lines. And just note, for example, where the stock price is over here, the stock price, the yellow line, much lower following this fails to deliver spike. And obviously it was being kept lower, maybe no correlation to these elevated spikes with fails to deliver. But I just, Alibaba is an incredibly profitable company. So I was waiting and curious to see what would happen. And sure enough, look at this drop off. I'm just going to zoom out. Wrong way. My bad. So you can see this. Look at the price when we get rid of those fails to deliver. When those are off screen, look at how the price just starts shooting. And this is the lack now of fail to deliver data. I just can't help but watch this and wonder if, for example, NIO happens to get shorted in 3 different baskets. One is as an EV stock, one is as a meme stock, and one is as a Chinese stock. And so if the Chinese thing is in play, and if we see Alibaba dip to that $95 level, where does NIO go? In the meantime, will we get more failed to deliver data? And then at what point do we perhaps see things take off to the upside? I don't know. It's just some of my thoughts. And I wanted to offer that in a video. The short thesis, again, essentially being crushed in my mind, is a video I'm going to enjoy doing, but I knew that I would have to use a lot of tabs and kind of queue this video up, and it would be a longer video. So I will do that one, hopefully get that out over the weekend. But have a great day. Thanks for stopping through. I'll see y'all again very soon.